My name is Faith R. Simmons, and I was 36 years old when my parents looked me in the eye and told me there wasn't enough room for me on the family trip this year. At first, I thought I misheard them. I actually waited a second, expecting someone to laugh or correct themselves because the words didn't make sense. This wasn't some casual weekend getaway. This was Lake Havasu, our summer trip. The one tradition that stayed solid even when everything else in our family started cracking at the edges. We just had to make some hard choices with space, my mom said, folding her hands like this was a scheduling issue instead of a rejection. We thought it might be good for you to have some quiet time, my dad added, nodding, like that made it thoughtful instead of cruel. I sat there stunned. I wasn't a distant relative. I wasn't an afterthought friend. I was their daughter. And somehow I was the one who didn't fit. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't ask who was going instead of me, because I already knew the answer didn't matter. I nodded slowly, said, okay, and walked out of their house. The anger didn't hit until I closed the door behind me. Not explosive anger, the kind that creeps in quietly and settles deep. It wasn't even about the trip. It was about what the decision said. That when space ran out, I was the easiest one to erase. A week later, it got worse. The first photo came from Jackie, my sister. An Instagram story of her laughing on a dock, matching shirts, novelty margaritas held up like trophies. I tapped through a few more. My parents, Rachel, Uncle Mike. And then I noticed someone else, a teenage boy I didn't recognize. That confused me. I hadn't seen him at any family gathering before. A few comments later, I figured it out. He was the 14-year-old son of a family friend. Apparently, he really needed a break from home. So, there was room, just not for me. I stopped watching the stories when my mom posted a group photo on a boat. Everyone sunburned and smiling, captioned, "Grateful for every one of them." That one sat with me. I stared at it for a long time before logging out. I didn't call. I didn't ask questions. I didn't tell them how it felt. If I was such an afterthought to them, maybe it was time they started feeling like one to me. That night, I remembered the credit account, the emergency one, the one in my name because I had the best credit in the family, the one they promised would be used sparingly and paid off every month. That promise had already been broken. Over the past year, I'd watched charges pile up. Gas stations, groceries, travel bookings, online orders that clearly weren't mine. I paid most of it just to protect my credit, and now they were on vacation, posting gratitude captions while I was still cleaning up their messes. I logged into the account and froze it. No warning, no text, just clicked freeze and logged out. The next morning, the calls started early. I was feeding my dog when the first one came in. Dad. I let it ring, then again, and again. By the end of the first hour, I'd missed 7 calls. Then Jackie texted, "Why did you freeze the account? We're stuck in the middle of nowhere." I didn't reply. I went to the coffee shop, walked my dog again. When I got home, I had missed 27 calls in total. My mom even tried emailing me. I didn't open it. Instead, I opened Venmo, sent exactly $1, and wrote, "Sorry, I don't have any money for you." Then I turned off my phone and took a nap. They got back the next evening. I knew because I'd been tracking their location through the shared app they'd forgotten about. I watched the little dot move across the map like a slow storm headed straight for me. At 7:43 p.m., someone started pounding on my front door. Not knocking. Pounding. My dog bolted from the living room, snarling like he knew exactly who was on the other side. I looked through the peephole and saw all of them standing there, fresh from their perfect vacation, faces already twisted with anger. I didn't open it right away. I just watched. And I knew, with absolute clarity, that whatever came next wasn't really about a frozen account or a missed trip. It was about control. I should have trusted my instincts and not opened the door at all. But when my dad banged again and shouted my name like he still owned it, something in me snapped from shock into clarity. I opened the door just enough to see their faces, flushed and tight with anger, still dressed like they'd stepped straight off a brochure for family togetherness. They didn't wait to be invited in. The second the door cracked, they pushed past me, like momentum alone gave them permission. My dog lunged forward, barking so hard his whole body shook. Jack yelped and jumped back, nearly tripping over his own feet. "Get control of that damn dog," he said, already puffing himself up like he belonged here. "He's trained to hate freeloaders," I said, and waited for the laugh that didn't come. My mom launched first, words spilling over each other like she'd rehearsed the speech in the car. She told me it was irresponsible to freeze the account while they were out of state, that it was dangerous, that I should have thought about the family. I didn't interrupt. I never do. I just let her talk herself into righteousness like she always does. My dad stepped in next, pacing my living room like he paid the rent. He said I acted like a spiteful child. Jackie jumped in, furious that I'd embarrassed them in front of their Airbnb host and the parents of the kids on the trip. Rachel chimed in with something about shame and decency. Nobody said sorry. Nobody said they were wrong for leaving me behind. Nobody asked how it felt to see strangers take my place in a tradition that used to mean something. Then Jack stepped forward. He'd only been around for a year, but he said it like he was delivering a verdict. If this is how you treat your own blood, maybe you don't deserve to be part of this family. I stared at him for a long 5 seconds. You're not family, I said calmly. You're just the plus one who didn't get left out. His face went red. He looked like he wanted to swing. My dog growled again, low and warning. I tightened the leash, just enough to remind myself I was still in control. The yelling filled every corner of my apartment. Accusations, guilt, complaints. Years of entitlement poured out like I hadn't spent the last 12 months quietly paying their bills while they pretended I didn't exist. Finally, I said it. Get out. They didn't move. I'm serious, I said, louder this time. Get the hell out of my apartment. One by one, they left. Jackie muttered something under her breath. Jack glared like he wanted to remember my face for later. Rachel slammed the door like it proved a point. My mom didn't say a word. Uncle Mike was the last one standing in the doorway. He looked embarrassed, not angry, like someone who realized too late he'd backed the wrong side. He hesitated, nodded once, and followed the others out. When the door finally shut, the silence felt earned. I took my dog for a walk without my phone. I didn't care what messages were waiting. Whatever storm they thought they were brewing, I already knew one thing with certainty. I wasn't playing along anymore. For 3 days, they went silent. No calls, no texts, nothing. It felt too calm, like the air before a thunderstorm. I knew better than to relax. People like them don't let go when they lose control. Saturday morning proved me right. I came back from walking my dog and immediately noticed something was wrong. The security door to my building was propped open with a rock. Muddy shoe prints marked the stairwell, leading straight up to my floor. My door was closed, but not locked. I always lock it. My dog started growling before I even stepped inside. And then I saw them. My family, sitting comfortably in my apartment like it belonged to them. My mom at the counter sipping coffee. My dad flipping through my mail. Jackie scrolling on my tablet. Jack eating the last slices of pizza I'd saved. Rachel rubbing lotion into her feet. Uncle Mike standing off to the side, clearly uneasy, but still there. I stood in the doorway with the leash in my hand, my dog barking like he wanted to tear Jack apart. I didn't stop him right away. "What are you doing in my apartment?" I asked. My dad didn't even look up. "We needed to talk. You wouldn't answer your phone." "So you broke into my place," I said. "You gave us a key," my mom replied. "For emergencies. This is an emergency." "You being uncomfortable because you had to pay for your own gas isn't an emergency," I said. That's when they dropped the real reason they were there, the kitchen. Months ago, I'd let them use my credit for one last thing. What they didn't tell me was that they charged $8,000 for renovations. Cabinets, plumbing, electrical, a full upgrade I'd never agreed to. "It was a family expense," my mom said. "You benefited too." "I haven't eaten in that kitchen in 10 months, I said. My dad stood up, anger sharp in his eyes. "If you refuse to pay, you're turning your back on this family." I looked at every face in the room and realized something chilling. They weren't upset I froze the account. They were upset I stopped being useful. "Get out," I said again. Jack laughed. "Or what?" I opened the door and pointed. 10 seconds before I call the police. They left slowly, muttering, slamming doors, throwing accusations over their shoulders. Uncle Mike hesitated again, then followed them out. The second the door shut, I changed the locks. And then I got to work. I gathered everything, like I was building a case against a stranger, not my own family. I pulled up every statement, every charge that wasn't mine, every booking, every late-night order, every little family emergency that somehow always ended with my name on the bill. I took screenshots until my phone felt hot in my hand. I photographed the kitchen renovation invoice the moment I found it buried in the account history, the one they'd never mentioned because mentioning it would have required admitting they knew it was wrong. I saved texts, emails, anything that showed patterns, not just moments. Then I called the credit company and opened a fraud dispute. They asked questions in calm voices that made everything sound simple, like this was just paperwork. But my hands were shaking, not from fear, from the realization that I'd been living inside a long con with people who smiled at me on holidays. They told me it could take days to review. I said fine. I didn't ask for mercy. I asked for facts. For 5 days, I waited. I walked my dog. I went to work. I pretended I wasn't holding my breath every time my phone buzzed. At night, I lay awake replaying the moment I'd walked out of my parents' house after they told me there wasn't enough room for me. I kept hearing my mom's voice. Hard choices with space. Quiet time. I realized the quiet time they wanted for me wasn't rest. It was distance. It was me disappearing without making them feel guilty. On the 5th day, the email came. The charge had been reversed. $8,000 wiped clean. The company said the bill would be directed to the account holders responsible. If it wasn't paid, collections would hit their names, not mine. I sat back on my couch and smiled so slowly it almost felt unfamiliar. My dog hopped up beside me, still sniffing around like he expected them to come back. I scratched behind his ear and whispered, "Not my problem anymore." 2 days later, the family group chat lit up for the first time in weeks. I'd muted it long ago, but the notifications still sat there like smoke after a fire. Jackie went first. "We need to talk. Seriously, it's about Dad." Then my mom. "Can we come over, please? Just 10 minutes. Then Jackie again. "He might lose his job. Faith, please just talk to us." I didn't open any of it. I already knew what it was. Damage control dressed up as concern. They weren't reaching out because they understood what they'd done. They were reaching out because the consequences finally had teeth. Later that afternoon, an unknown number called. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, my stomach tightened. It was HR from my dad's company. They said the credit dispute had flagged a billing address he used, his office. Because the charges were reversed under fraud, it triggered an internal investigation. My dad had been placed on administrative leave pending review. That evening, Jackie's messages turned venomous. "You've gone too far. This is your fault. You're destroying Dad." My mom sent a paragraph about loyalty and family and how I was tearing everyone apart. Rachel called me heartless. Jack didn't text at all, which somehow felt worse, because Jack only stayed quiet when he was planning something. I didn't respond. I knew if I cracked the door even an inch, they'd flood in and drown me in blame until I forgot where the truth started. At around 8:30, there was a knock on my door. Not pounding. 2 light knocks. Careful. I checked the peephole. Uncle Mike. He stood there holding a 6-pack and a plastic bag of takeout, like he didn't know what else to bring to a war zone. I opened the door and stepped aside. He walked in slowly, looking around like he expected the room to yell at him. "I'm not here to fix anything," he said. "I just want you to know the truth. You deserve that." He didn't waste time. He told me the 14-year-old kid they brought on the trip wasn't some neighbor's son who needed a break. He was Jack's little brother. His parents were in the middle of an ugly divorce, and Jackie thought bringing him along would make her look compassionate. She convinced my mom it was a good idea. My dad didn't care either way. They made room for him by cutting me out. "They knew you'd be angry," Uncle Mike said quietly. "They just didn't care enough to deal with it." I stared at him, feeling something cold settle behind my ribs. They hadn't made a hard choice. They'd made an easy one. They'd cut the person they could afford to lose because they assumed I'd still keep paying anyway. Uncle Mike looked down at his hands. "I didn't agree with it," he said, "but I went anyway. I thought maybe I could talk sense into them. It didn't work." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded because what was there to say? Truth didn't heal anything. It just stopped the bleeding from being invisible. That night, Jackie posted a black screen on her story with white text about family being forever until you throw it away. I didn't even finish reading it. I blocked her. Then I blocked my mom. Then my dad. Then Rachel. I blocked their emails too. The only person I didn't block was Uncle Mike. For the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter. I took my dog out for a walk and realized I wasn't afraid of them anymore. They were the ones losing control now. The blocks didn't stop them. They started showing up. Jackie came first. I watched her through the peephole as she paced in the hallway, knocking, waiting, knocking again. I didn't open. She slid a note under the door. I picked it up with 2 fingers like it was something sticky. "You're not acting like family. You're acting like a stranger with a grudge. Be better." I crumpled it and threw it away without reading the rest. The next night, my mom sat in her car outside my building for nearly half an hour. She didn't come to the door. She just stared up at my unit like I might suddenly remember my place and run down to apologize for being robbed. I watched her from the window. I still didn't care. By Friday, the silence felt calculated again. Then I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Jack. You might want to check your credit report. And don't worry, this wasn't me. But I warned you. You started this. I almost ignored it. But the phrase, "this wasn't me," made my skin prickle. I opened my credit monitoring app. There it was, a new inquiry from a home improvement store, another from a contractor supply chain. Someone had tried to open accounts in my name. My hands went cold. I locked everything down immediately. Fraud alert, full report filed. When the representative confirmed where the applications came from, I felt the last soft part of me disappear. The IP address traced back to my parents' home. They weren't just trying to punish me, they were still trying to use me. I didn't drive over there. I didn't call. I didn't scream into the void. I printed everything. The fraudulent applications, the kitchen invoice, screenshots of their texts, the HR voicemail, the dispute confirmations. I stacked it into a thick packet and dropped it at their front door in a sealed envelope with no note. Let the facts speak. Let the panic arrive without my voice. That night, close to midnight, Uncle Mike called. He didn't say hello. His voice was low and urgent. They lost it, he said. Your dad's talking about pressing charges for harassment. Your mom thinks you're trying to destroy the family. And Jackie is blaming you for everything. And Jack is feeding them poison. I didn't respond right away. I could hear muffled voices behind him, the sound of a house full of people who still believed I existed to absorb consequences. Then Uncle Mike said something that made my stomach drop. Faith, Jackie said something tonight that made the room go quiet. She said you ruined everything, and the only way to make you pay is to ruin something of yours. What does that mean? I asked. I don't know, he said, but it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a plan. After that call, I stopped sleeping like a normal person. I locked the door even when I was inside. I kept my phone off silent. I installed a small security camera above my door the next morning and told myself I was being paranoid until I wasn't. 3 days passed. No knocks, no notes, no messages, just eerie quiet. Then at 2:17 a.m., my phone lit up with a notification. Motion detected. Front door. I opened the camera feed and my breath caught. There they were. Jackie, Jack, my mom. Standing outside my door with garbage bags. One bag looked stuffed with shredded paper. Another looked heavy, clinking like tools. Jack crouched and jammed something into the keyhole. I didn't hesitate. I called the police. I watched through the feed as he shoved harder, as Jackie hovered like a supervisor, as my mom stood back, tense and silent, not stopping any of it. Then Jackie tried to slap a handwritten sign onto my door, pressing it down like it was a verdict. I couldn't read it clearly on the camera, but I saw the aggressive motion, the certainty. By the time the first officer arrived, part of the lock had been damaged and glue had been forced into the keyhole. The sign was half stuck, crooked, smeared. When the officer shined a light on it, I finally read the words, "You don't deserve to live alone." They tried to talk their way out of it. My mom called it a misunderstanding. Jack smirked, like it was a prank. Jackie crossed her arms, face red, silent like a child caught stealing. The officer asked me one question. Do you want to press charges? I didn't blink. Yes. And as I watched them being detained in my hallway, I realized something that felt almost like peace. This was the last time they'd ever stand on my doorstep and pretend I owed them anything. The hallway felt too quiet after the police left, like the building itself was holding its breath. I stood inside my apartment, staring at the damaged lock, glue smeared into the metal like a childish signature, the crooked sign already peeled off and lying face down in an evidence bag. My dog paced the floor, restless, still alert, like he didn't trust that danger was finished just because the door was closed. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared, but because my mind wouldn't stop cataloging everything that had led here. The trip, the matching shirts, the frozen account, the kitchen they never told me about, the break-in. It wasn't chaos anymore. It was a pattern. And once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. The next morning, my phone started ringing before I finished my coffee. Numbers I didn't recognize. Voicemails stacking up. One was from a lawyer, a family friend apparently, asking if I was open to de-escalating. Another from my mom, crying this time, saying things had gone too far, and none of this was what she wanted. She didn't mention the glue, or the sign, or the fact that she'd stood there and watched while my lock was destroyed. I didn't answer. Instead, I did something I should have done years ago. I filed a police report for identity theft. Not just about the kitchen, not just about the attempted accounts. Everything. The representative walked me through it carefully, explaining the process, the seriousness, the paper trail it would create. Every word felt grounding. Facts don't gaslight you. Facts don't rewrite themselves depending on who's in the room. By noon, I got another call. This one was from the credit bureau confirming what I already knew. The fraudulent applications had been officially linked back to my parents' home internet. There was no confusion, no gray area. Someone in that house had tried to open credit in my name after I cut them off. That was when the messages changed tone. Jackie's anger evaporated. My dad's certainty vanished. The text turned cautious, almost polite, like people suddenly aware that there were consequences they couldn't yell their way out of. We don't want this to get legal. Let's just talk. Families make mistakes. Mistakes are accidents. This wasn't an accident. This was entitlement meeting resistance for the first time. That evening, Uncle Mike called again. His voice sounded older, tired. "They're spiraling," he said. "Your dad's job is on the line. Jackie's blaming everyone but herself. Jack keeps saying none of this would have happened if you'd just stayed quiet." I laughed softly at that. Stayed quiet. That had always been the real expectation. "They're talking about you like you're the enemy," he added. "I know," I said. "They always have. They just don't whisper anymore." There was a pause. Then he said something that surprised me. "Your mom told people she only has one child now." I felt the sting of it, but it didn't cut the way it once would have. It felt more like confirmation than loss. "Okay," I said, and I meant it. Over the next few days, the fallout became public in small ways. My dad's administrative leave turned into a formal investigation. A contractor filed a complaint over unpaid work. Someone at church stopped sitting next to my mom. The illusion of the perfect family cracked, not because I exposed it, but because it couldn't hold without my money and my silence propping it up. A letter arrived in the mail midweek. Handwritten, no return address. For a second, my stomach tightened, expecting another attempt to pull me back in. Instead, it was from the 14-year-old boy, the one they'd brought on the trip. He wrote simply, awkwardly, apologetically. He said he hadn't understood everything then, but he understood now. He said he'd asked where I was, and had been told I was too dramatic to be invited. He said it hadn't felt right even then. I read it twice and folded it carefully. A stranger had managed more honesty than my own family. 2 days later, another message arrived. An anonymous email. No greeting, no explanation, just an attachment. Screenshots of a private group chat. My mom. Jackie. Jack. The name of the group sat at the top of the screen. Clean sweep. The messages were time-stamped from the night of the glue incident. They'd planned it. Who would bring the bags? Who would handle the lock? What to say if the police showed up? Reading it felt like watching a magic trick explained. The mystery vanished, replaced by something colder and clearer. The email ended with one sentence. "I thought you deserved to see who they really are." I didn't need to guess who sent it. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after that. Not angry, not sad, just done in a way that felt final. Not dramatic, not emotional. Final. For the first time since all of this began, I felt steady. Like the ground wasn't shifting anymore. Whatever came next, I wasn't bracing for it. I wasn't negotiating. I wasn't hoping. I was finished. I thought the worst part would be over after that. I thought once the police were involved, once the fraud reports were filed, once the screenshots existed outside of my head, the chaos would finally stop. I underestimated how hard people cling to control when it's the only thing they have left. 2 days after the screenshots arrived, my phone rang. From a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, it was a lawyer. Calm voice. Professional tone. A family friend, apparently. He said everyone wanted to avoid escalation. He said mistakes were made on all sides. He asked what I wanted. I sat there listening to the message again, then deleted it. What I wanted was already clear. I wanted them out of my life, not temporarily, not with conditions, not with promises, permanently. That afternoon, I wrote a letter, 1 page, no emotion, no accusations, just facts. I included a copy of the $8,000 kitchen invoice that was no longer my responsibility. I included a note that said they could figure it out together, like family. I added the names of 2 credit monitoring services and a single sentence advising them not to use my identity again unless they wanted the next call to be from the district attorney. Then I mailed it, certified, so there would be proof it arrived. After that, I blocked everyone. My mom, my dad, Jackie, Jack, Rachel, every number, every email, every social account. I deleted the family group chat entirely. The only person I didn't block was Uncle Mike. He hadn't earned that silence. Weeks passed. Life got quiet in a way that didn't feel empty. My dog and I settled into routines that didn't involve waiting for the next explosion. Morning walks, work, evenings without my phone lighting up like a warning signal. I slept through the night again. I stopped flinching at knocks in the hallway. One night, Uncle Mike called. He didn't waste time. "They said you're not their daughter anymore," he told me. "Your mom said she has one child now. Jackie?" I waited for the familiar rush of hurt. It didn't come. "They'll never say it out loud," he added, "but they know they messed this up. You were the one who always showed up, paid for things, smoothed things over, and they chose someone else because they thought you'd stay anyway." "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I'm just done." And I meant it. I still live in the same apartment. I didn't move. I didn't reinvent myself. I didn't need a dramatic reset. I just removed the chaos. My dog still hates everyone but me. I started taking weekend trips alone. No matching shirts, no group photos, no forced smiles, just space. Every now and then, I see their faces pop up online, tagged in photos or mentioned in passing. I scroll past like they're strangers because that's what they are now, and it feels honest. 2 weeks went by without a single incident. For the first time since all of this started, life felt normal. I'd changed my cards, updated my passwords, replaced the locks. The camera above my door stayed quiet. Then a letter arrived, handwritten, no return address. I opened it slowly, expecting nothing good. Instead, it was from the 14-year-old boy, Evan. I finally knew his name. He wrote that he hadn't understood what was happening on the trip, but he understood now. He said he'd asked where I was and had been told I was too dramatic to be invited. He said it didn't sit right with him then, and it didn't sit right now. That letter hit harder than anything else. A kid who barely knew me had more integrity than the people who raised me. 2 days later, one more message arrived. An anonymous email. No text, just an attachment. I opened it. Screenshots of the group chat. Clean sweep. Plans laid out clearly. Who would bring what? What to say if the police showed up? How to make me feel small. The email ended with one sentence. "I thought you should see what family really looks like." I closed my laptop and sat there for a long time, not shaking, not crying, just still. That was the moment everything truly ended. Not because I blocked them, not because the police were called, but because I stopped questioning myself. They hadn't misunderstood me. They hadn't made a mistake. They made a choice, over and over again, and I finally made one too. I chose peace, and I didn't look back.